So, good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Underhill Development Review Board for Monday, August 19th, 2020. This is on the application, conditional use review hearing for home industry application by Gordon Williamson for a proposed firewood processing operation where logs will be trucked in from off-site, stockpiled, and processed into firewood, which will then be trucked off-site to be sold. The subject property is located at 623 Pleasant Valley Road and is 56 acres, located in 3 different zoning districts in town. However, the proposed operation is to be located in the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation District. This application is subject to review under the current regulations, the 2011 Town of Underhill Unified Land Use and Development Regulations as amended through March 3rd, 2020, and the 2015 Underhill Road Driveway and Trail Ordinance, last amended December 18, 2018. Conditional use review is intended to ensure compliance with the standards addressing potential impacts of development on adjoining properties and neighborhood zoning district in which the development is located and the community at large. Typically, land uses are subject to conditional use review because of their scale, intensity, and potential for offsite impacts warrant more careful scrutiny by the DRB. Standards and conditions relate to the identification of avoidance or mitigation of potential impacts. Should additional information be required, the board reserves the option to continue the hearing to a date and time certain for that information to be submitted and reviewed by this board. So we have 4 members participating from the Development Review Board tonight. Those members are myself, Charlie Van Winkle, I'm the chair. To my left is Brian Birch. To his left is Dan Lee, applicant Gordon Williamson, and directly across or to my right immediately is the town administrator Brad Holman, and last but not least Shani Barlow. Anyone who is going to participate about the Williamson hearing, would ask that you at least log in, give us your name, mailing address, residential address, and it'd be helpful to have an email, right? Or no?
Sure.
Sure. If you didn't put it on, don't worry about it if you've already signed in. Are there any state or municipal representatives present other than the interim zoning administrator and acting in their representative capacity? So nobody's here from that. Copies of the rules of procedure that the board follows, as well as an interested party information sheet, is available for review at the town's website or can be obtained from the planning and zoning administrator outside of this hearing. Only those interested persons who have participated either orally or through written statements in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision rendered in that proceeding to the Environmental Division of Superior Court. If you're an applicant representative, or an interested party who wants to participate in the hearing, you're clearly asked that you state your name prior to speaking. What I'm going to do now is swear in all those folks who wish to testify tonight regarding this application. All individuals in person and online who plan to testify must take the following oath by responding "I do" at the end of the statement. So here it goes. Do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Are there any conflicts of interest, or have there been any ex parte communications on part of any of the board members?
No.
No.
So I was represented in the prior hearing by, you work for Dinsey, right?
Dinsey, my colleague Justin Barber.
Yeah. Justin's not here tonight, but he may be a consultant on the case. If you're okay with that,
I still am fine with that.
Yeah, okay. I don't perceive it as a conflict, but I want to avoid the appearance of a conflict, so.
Yep.
So in regards to tonight's hearing, and to help alleviate interruptions, what we'll have you do is, Gordon, is you'll present your case. We'll hear from the interim planning and zoning administrator, and then members of the board can ask questions at any time. We'll give each person in the room a chance to speak, and then we'll follow through with anybody online who wants to speak. So everybody's here. We'll give it an opportunity to provide testimony. After we've gone through all the testimony and all participants in the hearing, we'll give you another opportunity to redirect, and provide final comments. And then we'll have one more round of questions from the board members if they have any. All speakers should adjust their comments to the board and not to other parties present at the hearing. Under our rules of procedure, members of the public are afforded 5 minutes unless a request and majority consent of the board to extend their time. As I stated before, the board may ask questions to anyone in attendance. At this point in time, the information package that the staff report and associated exhibits that was distributed by the Planning and Zoning Administrator prior to tonight's hearing will be entered into the record. The materials included in this package relevant to the hearing are Exhibit A, the DRB agenda for tonight. Exhibit B, a zoning permit application. Exhibit C, a supplemental home business supplemental form. Exhibit D, the Williamson certificate of service. Exhibit E, Underhill DRB notice. Exhibit F, firewood processing operation description provided by the applicant. Exhibit G was the Williamson site plan, and Exhibit H is the Underhill zoning administrator appeal decision dated June 10th, 2024. These exhibits are available in the Williamson review file, DRB 2402, PV 623 at the town of Underhill Planning and Zoning Office, and are also available on the town website. And that is it for the preamble stuff. Gordon, I know you went through this on site, but can you present your application to the board?
Absolutely. So basically, the application is following being removed from the 633 Pleasant Valley Road location. I was there and now need to set up on my property to operate a firewood processing operation. I have moved my processor up there. July 21st was the day. The reason that I took so long to move it up there is because originally we set up on Joe Tisbert's property because of a couple of concerns. One was room for storage of logs. It was a wide open field. And two was the bridge and the driveway. Originally, the previous owners that I'd bought the house from rated the bridge unofficially at 65,000 pounds. My truck, being a triaxle log truck, is a fairly heavy truck, and I believed at the time, without weighing it, that it was probably more than that. So I took and hired the engineering firm that does all of the engineering for the bridges in Underhill. Hired her personally. She came out, did a full estimate on the bridge and evaluation, and she rated the bridge comfortably at 72,000 pounds. I then went to GW Tatros and weighed my truck, and it comes in fully loaded, almost illegally loaded, at 69,740 pounds. So the bridge is not a concern for me anymore at this time, especially with the bridge span being 40 feet and my truck span being 39 feet. There's never at any time any more than 55 to 60,000 pounds on the center of the bridge at that time, at one point. So I've moved my operation right in front of our garage, about 55 feet in front of our house. It is 250 to 275 feet from any landowner property line at a minimum. We recorded noise on a quiet, no wind, sunny day. My wife walked around with the noise meter, the decibel meter from the town of Underhill, and recorded 3 different spots. The first spot being right at Dave and Pam's driveway, which is the right of way on our property. That was 250 feet from my processor, from the corner of where it's set up. And the decibel reading there was 34.5 decibels. We then proceeded to the property line pin that is marked on that paper, I believe, right on our septic field that's on Dave and Pam's property line. It's 34.6 decibels there. And then just a little bit further north where my sap lifter or releaser is in my sugaring operation, which is also right on the property line, about 5 feet, give or take. The measurement there with the sound meter was 39.2 decibels. We didn't feel that we needed to keep going around because it gets further away from Dave and Pam's house as we go on. It's 55 feet from the front of our house. It's a 60-foot wide by 75-foot deep spot. It's 275 feet to the right of way and 235 feet to any property line. I basically haul in logs from loggers that I have established a rapport with. These are logs that are acquired from active timber harvests on landowners' properties that are in a land management or forest use plan that need to be cleared or cut to, just because the forest needs to be managed. None of the logs that are purchased are ever from any development or anything like that. It is all just land use and clear cutting. They are brought in on my truck, 6 cords at a time over the bridge and up to the spot next to my processor. And I pull up to the garage, I back in next to the processor, I idle my truck up for the PTO to 800 RPMs, which is barely over 25 to 30 decibels at any property line. And I load the processor deck with firewood, usually between 1.5 to 2.5 cords, depending on log length, log size, and diameter. And then I start the processor. I operate the processor at 2,400 RPMs. The logs come down the trough, go through the saw that cuts them at a perpendicular angle, and I cut them anywhere from usually 14 inches on the short end to 24 inches on the long end. They then go through a splitter, and it's an 8-way wedge that splits the wood into usable pieces for a firewood stove or fireplace. And then it goes up the conveyor and into my firewood truck, which holds 3 cords. That truck is 21,000 pounds empty, and a green cord of firewood is usually around 4,500 pounds. So there's 3 of them on the truck. So loaded, it would be about roughly between, depending on the species of firewood, between 31 and 34,000 pounds. So that's not a bridge issue at all. I have talked to Dave and said that since I am running heavier equipment, log trucks and delivery trucks over the driveway, that I would be more than happy to do a 70-30 split on the driveway maintenance. I did tell him, notify him that I did have the bridge weight evaluated by a professional engineering firm. And I also told him that I have about 55 cords to cut left for this season, and then I'll pretty much be shutting down. This operation is very, very light. It is not every day. To this day right now, I've only cut for 28 days this season. And I've only cut, I believe there's 75 cords, give or take, roughly. Because of the DRB appeal and everything else that we had earlier this year, it really shortened my season, and I did take on a lot of extra clients and customers because I didn't want to leave them hanging without firewood for this winter. So I kept my close clients and stuff and didn't advertise, and push it off on some other firewood cutters that are good friends that I knew that would take care of them. This, like I said, it's a very minimal operation. I do between 250 to 350 cords a year, give or take. Depends on the winters, depends on how many people need wood, depends on how many new people need wood. It's not an everyday thing for me. It's very minimal. So if I had a non-intrusive season where I started around April 15th this year down on 633 lot. If I didn't have any legal issues or any DRB intervention or anything like that, I would probably only be 1 day a week if I'd have been able to keep going. This year with that, I've also had multiple breakdowns that set me back for about 8 weeks because of lack of parts and availability and stuff. But on a normal good day or week or month or whatever, I don't cut more than 1 or 2 days a week if I was caught up. So, are there any questions?
Yeah, you said in your testimony, your pre-filed testimony, that you start generally around 8 a.m.
Yeah, this year, since I moved it up to the house, I have been, we've been getting ready for our second child that we had last Wednesday. It's been hard to get up, so I haven't had a lot of sleep. So
But I'm just
generally,
hours of
yes,
operation.
hours of operation anywhere after 8 a.m. And I try not to go past 5. We like to eat dinner around 5:30, so I like to go in and help the wife cook and all that. So if for some reason I have something to do around lunch or whatever, the second load on the truck would be pushed back a little bit, but I can, if it gets to that point where it's an issue or a concern, anything past 4:30 or 5:30 or whatever, I'll just cut it the next morning. It's firewood, it's not gonna go anywhere. Getting it there that night or whatever, it's not a concern. I have very relaxed customers, and I'm very relaxed and open to any type of conditional use, hours, days of operation, and I think I've made that clear to the neighbors multiple times. So
if I could just frame this a little bit, so your hours of operation would be 8 to 5:30.
8 to 5. I won't go after 5.
Right. Yeah. And in a perfect world, you'd be doing it one day a month?
No, 1 day a week.
1 day a week.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
Yeah.
So under 50 days a year.
So last year I did 265 cords, and I cut 79 days out of the year. So some days it depends on how early I can start in the spring, and if I get late orders, some of those orders are seasoned that I do pick up from other people if I run out. So when I write those down, I consider that a day of operation for me. So I do have a firewood supplier in Waterville that has seasoned wood as well. So it may not generally mean that it's a day that I run the processor, but it may be a day that I just drive my truck out the yard. So I would say less than, I don't have the amount of days recorded where I did 325 cords, which is my highest year that I've cut.
Yeah.
I don't want to get that high, honestly. I'd like to be right around 2 to 250. Being said, there are a couple of older firewood cutters that in the town that have been doing it for a long, long time that aren't going to live forever. And at some point, they will cease to be a firewood supplier in this town. So.
So I know you answered this question on site, but you're the only employee.
Yes, I am by myself, one-man band. I do not have any other employees on the books, and I do not pay anybody else to help me.
Yeah.
I drive my log truck, I operate my firewood processor, and I operate my delivery truck.
How about mechanics or anybody?
No, I take it to Cliff Porter or Valancourt's. It's always done off-site unless it's something I can fix, which generally my only mechanical stuff is hoses, teeth on the saw blade, bearings, stuff like that. Anything bigger than a 1.25 inch wrench is beyond me and my capacity, so I take it to Cliff Porter's repair.
Okay. Get an ice cream there.
Couple of them. He's getting some good advertising in this meeting.
Commercials.
Yeah. I'm gonna ping him for some money unless I get a free comb.
I'm shooting off the questions that come to my mind. I don't need to stop you guys, but if not, I'll move on to Brad.
All right. Well, I just got to say that I'm going to just be blunt. My patience are wearing really thin with this, and all due respect, Gordon, I think who's to blame here is the Department of Forest Parks and Recreation. You have two different statutes that have two different definitions. You've got, in Title 10, a definition of accepted forestry practice and just for the folks online, we've had some comments on the line. People are wondering, I can't cut firewood in my yard. Well, that's not true, right? So Title 10 tells us accepted management practice or forestry operations. If Gordon was cutting wood that was totally off his own land and not trucking logs in, he'd be able to operate. But since he's trucking logs in from another site and processing them on site, he's not allowed to do that according to our regulations. The hardest thing is, how do you define this thing? So, you know, I made a decision that thinking that Gordon perhaps was an exempt forestry operation. The DRB overturned that. So what's left? Well, it looks like a sawmill to me. I'm sorry. That's just my opinion, not the DRB's opinion. It's their call to make. But if it's not an exempt forestry operation, it's a sawmill. And unfortunately, sawmills are excluded from almost all zones in Underhill, except for one. Is that right? I don't know. I think truly what you have to blame here is the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation. They didn't follow through on their work. They didn't cross-reference Title 10. You know, you've got two different sets of definitions, one in core procedures, but they define accepted management practices totally differently, right? And then our definitions refer to as defined as by the Department of Forest, Parks and Recreation, right? So, but you come back full circle, Title 24 states that, you know, there's certain things we can't regulate. We can't regulate forestry operations. Forestry operations are only those operations that take place on the harvest unit. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening here. So I don't think it's town of Underhill to blame, but I could have easily took your application and denied your application and said, no, this is a not allowed use in this zone. But then you would have come to appeal that decision to the DRB. Let's cut right to the chase. And that's why I referred this to the DRB. I've got a lot of bigger fish to fry. I'm the town administrator here. I've been hanging on this job for a year, and my patience are super thin, like ready to walk out that door thin. So let's just cut right to the chase and make a decision. And my opinion is it's a sawmill. I'm sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. We don't need the baggage.
I just want to tell you where.
We want to know what your opinion is regarding this.
That's my opinion, but I just perceive this dragging down the road more and more. My baggage is my baggage. I had to get that off my chest.
Okay, so baggage is off your chest. Your opinion is it's a sawmill, so you didn't deny it, you just kicked it to us.
I kicked it to you.
Which is fine. That's what you're supposed to do when you're unsure. So that's fine, that's why we're here.
It's your decision.
Yeah. So I guess, you're good. Anything else to add? We will get a turn, Pam. But basically, the next step in my process is to open up for public comment.
Oh, Dave says I can't.
No, you can, you just have to sign in, we need your address, and your address.
I already did that.
Okay, so
I think
come on over, Gordon, you can be excused. We want you up on camera.
I'm just gonna be quick.
That's okay.
Come on up.
You can talk. So I know who you are, but the camera
Where's
doesn't,
the
so.
camera?
Right here, this is
Oh, I'm
Steve. the camera.
sorry. Hi, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm Pam Sills. I'm a neighbor of Gordon, and I definitely say that it is a sawmill. His sawmill, wherever they took the readings from, you know, I'm not sure, but if you were to come to our house and see where I park the car, get out and sit in front of my front door, and when you hear that start up, the diesel truck running is one thing, but when you hear that, I mean, on and on and on. Look, it can give you a headache. I mean, I'm semi-retired. We bought that property after working hard, and that's our retirement. And so, you know, we want to be outside 8 to 5. I mean, you know, the evening, I work afternoon evenings right now, and that could change. And so that is complete disruption to our life. When we bought that property, there's not a sawmill there, and it definitely is a sawmill with wood cut from other places, not from his property. And I'll let my husband talk if he wants, so that's
Got
me.
that?
Yeah, thank you for letting me talk.
Well, this is public process. Everybody gets a chance to talk. So who's next?
I'll defer until others.
Okay.
Oh, I could say more.
I have a question for Pam real quick, which I was just wondering what house was Pam's?
Ben's is the one right next door, Dave and Pam Sills, at 625.
So
There's
they've got, so if you show us, this is like an old map. with
Shoot,
like
I'm not,
Yeah,
my
so,
husband might know
I know,
better.
but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So this is in front of our house, this is our property line, Dave and Pam's house is right down there.
Okay. So kind of like in this area of your property?
Dave, buddy, come see, because I'm not.
I think it was originally part of that. I think
Yeah.
Gordon owns the parent property and this was subdivided off.
Yeah, it's like a lot one, a lot two. So your house
Yeah, this
is,
is our lot.
okay, your house on your lot is,
Right about there.
okay, so kind of right in the middle.
Sorry, I drew
No,
the
I
circle
don't
in the
know.
wrong spot.
I don't think it's right in the middle.
Oh, there's a picture here that shows where it is. Real
Yeah,
estate
there we
map.
go.
Still upside down.
Dave, you didn't say hi to the camera.
it's okay.
The camera will find it.
There's,
Gordon.
that's his house, his processing is over here.
And
Our
there's
house
our
is right
house.
there.
Okay.
You can see that distance, there's.
You want to take it?
And I,
We'll
Yep.
take a
That's
second.
the circle with the X.
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nicholas Burrell. I live at 612 Pleasant Valley Road. I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to Gordon Williamson's sawmill operation and home industry permit that he's applying for. The sawmill operation is negatively impacting my family and in several ways. We still hear the saw just like we did when he was located next door to us at 633 Pleasant Valley Road. And now we hear more noise from the continual truck traffic and hauling logs and delivering the firewood. And I believe Gordon take one of the turns into his driveway. So if he's heading towards Jeffersonville, he's got to back up and, make like a K turn to get in the driveway. So we hear the emergency backup beep, beep, beep. The use of the engine brakes for the large trucks right in front of our house is disturbing to us. It seems unnecessary and purposeful at this point. I'm not a trucker by any means, but I thought engine brakes were for slowing big trucks with big weight. So I don't know why that's needed. Finally, I don't know why we're here. Sawmills are not permitted in this district. I guess you guys can argue your definition of a sawmill and how far you want to bend that, but it's a sawmill. There's a reason that these regulations are in place. And, we've been here before with the appeal when he was operating next door. And I guess that's all I have to say. It's very negatively impacting us, and we're hoping the town enforces its regulations. It's very clear cut, no sawmills, very clear. I don't feel like you shouldn't have even honored this. It's no sawmills, and that's my statement.
So we're here
Thank you.
because the zoning administrator referred it to us
Okay.
for decision. What happened that the property across the road is moot. This is a new application.
Okay,
That's why we're here.
I'm sorry, because to me, it seems like it's
It's
just another
connected. It's
avenue.
connected,
So,
but it's a new application.
So I just thank you all for your time, and
Thank you. I'm Dave's wife. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Noah Greenstein. I represent Nicholas Burrell, who you just heard from, along with his partner Heather, who I believe is here virtually with us, and their neighbors, Russ and Tricia Vogel, who are sitting over there as well. As you just heard from Nick,
So no, who else do you represent?
Russ and Tricia Vogel, who are sitting back
Okay,
there.
are you guys planning on talking?
I wasn't.
Okay. If you're represented by counsel, I prefer to have you either represented by counsel or not. I don't want to hear the same testimony twice.
Sure, so I'm going to be relatively brief, focus
Okay.
on the legal issues here. I will not repeat the
Yeah.
testimony that Nick provided, but just thought it was important for the board to hear the impacts to him personally. I'll be brief in light of the testimony earlier. Under the applicable definition, this is clearly a sawmill. If you look at the definition of a sawmill in the relevant regulations, which is on page 208, a sawmill is a wood processing facility, including structures and yard areas where logs are stored and processed into lumber and other wood products. Mr. Williamson wants to haul in timber from offsite, store it there, and process it on there into a wood product, firewood. That is kind of the core definition of a sawmill. I'm just going to hand out a memorandum that briefly summarizes this testimony, and we'd just like to refer the board to a decision from a Vermont trial court addressing the definition of a sawmill under the town of Charlotte's regulations. It attaches Exhibit C to the memorandum, and I think it provides a good illustration of the distinction between forestry and sawmill, and how using a sawmill on a, quote, using a portable sawmill on a long-term basis on an unrelated to site to process logs brought in from off-site falls outside the definition for forestry, and it's a commercial sawmill. Again, that's Exhibit C to our memorandum. I think Administrator Holden acknowledged earlier that, his opinion is a sawmill, but he referred it to the DRB because if he denied it, Mr. Williamson would just have appealed it. To the extent Mr. Williamson wants to move forward, conditional use review is not the applicable procedure here. If you look under Section 411 of the town zoning regulations, what it says is that, I'm sorry, I referred to the wrong provision. One second. Section 5.4, which outlines the requirements for conditional use review. What it says is no development shall be approved in violation of existing municipal bylaws and ordinances. So if it's a sawmill, as Administrator Holden acknowledged, then it can't be approved as a conditional use. There'd have to be some other procedure that you have to seek advantage of, which I think would be a request for variance, but the regulations are clear that.
I disagree with you here. We're in Section 5.4 of our regulations. There's 5 criteria that we have to review the application under. And it's also tied under to 5.3, which is site plan review, and Section 314, which is performance standards.
Sure.
So there's a whole litany of stuff that we have to go. So which one are we doing wrong in your opinion?
So Section 5.4 B4, entitled bylaws in effect.
Yeah, that's a part of the criteria though.
Sure, and so what it says is that the last sentence in that paragraph says, no development shall be approved in violation of existing municipal bylaws and ordinances. But so a sawmill.
So if you're telling me I'm under the wrong set of regs to review this under, then that's out of the question, right? If you're telling me I shouldn't be looking at Section 5.4, where should I be looking to review this application under?
So Section 5.4, I'll rephrase. I guess I was a little confusing. I'll rephrase. Okay. Section 5.4 is the applicable rule
review criteria
to look at under conditional review.
Yeah.
What those conditional review criteria say is that you can't approve a development that would violate existing municipal bylaws and ordinances.
Mm-hmm.
If this is a sawmill, which it's pretty clearly is under the relevant definition, a site where lumber is hauled in from off-site, stored and processed, then it can't be approved as a conditional use.
That's part of our criteria. Our review criteria.
I guess I don't mean to disagree. I think however you phrase it, what the rule says that when you're looking at those conditional reviews criteria, you can't approve a proposed project under conditional use that would violate an existing bylaw.
Yeah.
And here there's a bylaw that says sawmills are not allowed in the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation District. So to get around that, I guess you'd have to seek a variance or some other procedure. But if you look at the list of permitted and conditional uses in the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation District, there are certain specified uses that are labeled conditional.
Yeah.
Hang on 1 second, such as anyways,
It's near the front of the document,
Yeah.
not behind the description.
Okay.
Home industry. Yeah.
Home industry is a.
So, but to the extent it is a sawmill, then approving that under conditional use would violate the existing bylaw against sawmills operating in the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation District. I don't need to repeat. I think the extent you disagree with it or agree with it, I think I made that point clear. And I think all you have to do is look to the relevant regulations.
Yeah.
Again, we think that's the end of the matter, but I'll briefly add that to the extent you review the applicable criteria, those criteria, what they say is that you have to have a clearly designated storage area where the proposed industry is going to take place, along with the associated equipment and materials. Also be contained within that clearly designated yard or storage area. That is not occurring because there's logs that are being stockpiled at the old site, 632 Pleasant Valley Road, that Mr. Williamson is planning to cut and use. So the entire operation is not contained within that existing site area, which means the applicable criteria aren't met. And Exhibit D has some photos of the current logs stacked at 633 Pleasant Valley Road. I'm happy to open the question up to the board. I think that memo provides a more detailed summary of how I got exactly to my conclusions, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions that may have arisen.
So I'm good. I mean, procedurally, we're under the right review criteria in your opinion, section 5.4.
Yes, to the extent I was unclear, section 5.4 is the applicable criteria to consider
Yeah.
whether or not to approve a conditional use.
Yeah.
One provision of that criteria says
Subsection 4 says,
you can't approve as a conditional use a product that would violate some other bylaw or provision of the regulations. Here, there's a provision saying you can't operate a sawmill in the Mount Mansfield Scenic Preservation District.
Yeah.
That's an absolute prohibition. You can't get around that prohibition by conditional use review.
point taken.
I appreciate your time.
All right. Got a room full of folks. Who's next?
Dave.
Dave's next. Pam, Dave. Dave says you're next.
Yeah.
Wait, that's where we are, right?
I'll try to be brief.
So
See, there's a new,
Dave Sills,
Dave Sills,
625.
625 Pleasant Valley Road, sorry. We're starting off with this map. Some of you can see that. I'm not sure if you can identify the properties involved. I had it here now. Okay.
Dave, can you make sure Gordon has one of these maps?
It's gonna be, I'll get them on. It's up in this top left corner. This is our property.
I can show you.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, oh, you know.
Or the little stripe line, follow it to that little red and white stripe line, follow it and.
In any event, if you look at that,
Okay.
this map, you can see that our property, our house is actually almost identically distant from the mill as Nick's house. Just want to make that point. Also, you can see where our house is, 625, 623. We follow the driveway along towards Pleasant Valley Road. Those readings were taken on that driveway, which obviously goes away from our house. I haven't had time to look at this scale. However, I do have a town map with a scale on it, which I measured with a ruler. And the distances to the closest part of our property, I see by scale is 130 feet. And it's approximately 200 feet from our house to his mill.
Where's that measured from?
Yeah, there's your map. So one would be, the mill is over here.
Yeah.
One would be this distance, and another would be that distance towards our house.
Okay.
I haven't used the tape yet, but I figured that's good enough for now. There's no, I don't have my notes. Okay, dates of cutting. We took a log, and Monday, 7/22, he ran the mill. Tuesday, he just used his boom truck. Wednesday, 7/24, he ran this mill. Thursday, 7/25, he ran the mill. Friday, 8/2, he ran the mill. Tuesday, 8/6, he ran the mill. Wednesday, 8/7, he ran the mill. Thursday, 8/8, he ran the mill. Tuesday, 8/13, he ran the mill. Wednesday, 8/14, he ran the mill. So
And those dates are when you were home.
these were recorded by my wife. With regard to the bridge, I'm still somewhat concerned about it, but there is a bit of a history here. I did not bring records of this, but about 2 or 3 years ago, I believe in 2022 maybe, a logger came across with a tandem with a tag-along trailer behind him. And I talked to him, and we had a great conversation. I asked him how much his rig weighed. He told me it was over 120,000 pounds. And I have a record of that. I can produce it for the board later if you want it. I have pictures of it as well. With our windows closed, the noise level is still extremely disturbing. As I said, our distance is about the same as Nick's from the mill, and we're subjected to the similar conditions that they were subjected to, which I find entirely objectionable. I find it also unfortunate that Gordon can't run his mill and on his property, but I just don't see it as compatible with the reasonable use of land. And I'm not sure, this section 314 performance standards, I'm not sure it applies or not, but there's a bit in here that says something about no land structure in any zoning district shall be used or occupied in any manner that creates dangerous, injurious, noxious, otherwise objectionable conditions that adversely affect or interfere with the reasonable use of adjoining properties nearby. And I find this to be the case. So that pretty much is what I have. Thanks.
Everybody has to go once before you get to go again. Is there any other? Yes, sir.
Dennis Williamson, 12 Sand Hill Road, Underhill. I've listened to this whole discussion quite carefully, and I'm not familiar with any of the ordinances that you have in your manuals or in the town bylaws or laws. I've listened to Gordon's machine. I've lived here all my life. I'm a native Vermonter. I know the difference between a sawmill and a wood processor. I've watched that machine operate several times. Not once have I seen it produce a piece of lumber. No 2x4s, no 2x6s. It's designed and operated to cut block wood, split block wood, and deliver it to homeowners that are going to burn that wood. Now, just because he brings the wood in from different sites, I believe that that is the big question. He brings it in from different sites and he processes it on his property. If it were being processed from his property, we wouldn't even be here because that's the way the rules read, I believe. I have a neighbor just down the road that I listen to every day cut his wood. He has a conditional work permit because he got it before 2011. I have a neighbor up the road that does the same thing. I can't hear his, but I can hear Westall's. As far as Jake breaks go, there are many people that go down that road every day with big trucks and use Jake brakes. I was woken up this morning at 6:30 by a truck going down Sand Hill Road with a Jake brake on. It's a noisy world out there, and people use that for safety. But I cannot understand at all how anybody can classify this machine as a lumber mill. It's beyond my recognition. I can't see it. And I'm not saying that just because he's my son. I'm saying it because it's not a sawmill. It is a wood processor that is designed to process wood. And that's it. You can, I think that's all I've got to say for now. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to take care of the call online before I forget?
Sure. Natalie, now would be the time to say something if you'd like to.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Natalie Coughlin, and I grew up at 8 Dean Road, which is right across the river from Dennis Belloin, I believe. He has a wood processing thing right up the road. So I know what a wood processor sounds like. I grew up listening to it. And so I guess my questions about this are a lot of Underhill listens to loud noises at the range, and it's something that we do here in our town because it's something we put up with because it's a way of life here in Underhill to protect, and support our troops. And then we also grew this whole state on agriculture. And I think that most people, I know I heat with wood. I know a lot of people in the area heat with wood. I know everybody needs lumber. So I don't know the rules and the regulations, but I do know that there's a need for wood. And we listen to noise already in our town supporting our troops. And I'm just wondering how this is going to impact us. So we have a sugar house down the road and we can't cut down our own trees because we make syrup from them. So if we needed to truck in 100 cords of wood and process it, would we be prevented from doing that because the regulations aren't clear enough? Like, there's a need for wood. What if we need to process, 50 cords for our house and that we supply a couple of neighbors? And what if we as citizens in Underhill need to do this? Like, how is this going to impact all of us? How is this going to impact the cost of firewood if we don't have an area in our town where we can make firewood? Like, I just don't understand the sense of it. And how most of our citizens have to listen to the firing range. I think that it's fair to ask some citizens to have to listen to some noise so that we can heat our homes. And make our firewood and continue the way of life that we've had in Vermont since we were founded. I just don't understand how we can move forward if we start making all of these operations illegal and against the rules.
Natalie, what's your mailing address?
My mailing address is 28 Mullen Road. We also have a sugar house on 28 Butler Road.
And your physical address is?
28 Mullen Road. We also own the farm now as of last week. As of last week, we own the farm at 655 Irish Settlement, which is across the field from Gordon's processor.
Okay.
There's 3 other people online. Did any of you want to say anything? Heather, caller 1, or no name?
So Heather's represented by Noah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Name and caller 1 are identifying themselves. So Gordon, I'll give you an opportunity to redirect.
Absolutely. May I actually make a statement, please?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Hi, my name is Scott Quilkin, live at 144 Pleasant Valley Road. And I'm just here in support of Gordon Williamson, who has been the primary firewood deliverer for us since we returned to the area, my family, for the past 6 years. We were primarily heating our homes with firewood. And I appreciate the council definition that he provided for objectively what a lumber mill is. And reading the ordinances, it is very sticky, because if he were to process his own wood on site, it would not be considered a lumber mill, but a wood processing unit, but the same machine, only because of wood brought in from another site, becomes redefined as a lumber mill, which is a little confusing to me. The woman who just spoke, where we live at 144 across from the dump road, we hear both the mountain school, we hear the range, as well as a lot of Jake breaks, including the town trucks. And it's just part of living there, even though we haven't been here as long as most of the folks here probably don't know really anyone here. But also in the state, for the landowners in that area have the trail systems behind them. Thanks very much for allowing us to use those trails. So I both hike with my family and use the mountain trails there, so thank you. So it's just a little confusing to me objectively, the definition that is being argued right now, and I think that's the sticking point. There is a lot of obvious emotion, subjectivity here, but just trying to iron out exactly what is the definition, if it is legally allowed, or I think is what should be focused upon. So, thank you.
I would see.
Okay.
Tricia Vogel, 611 Pleasant Valley Road. I would just like to give a little bit of a history here on exactly how all of this has come to be previously, or for any of the landowners in and nearby that are having impacts from the sound that is happening. Initially, there was not a permit that was permitted for Gordon to be operating at 633 Pleasant Valley Road. It was never mentioned to us that there was going to be a business going on. We tolerated it for a while. In 2022, it was pretty intolerable with the amount that was processed at that time during that summer. Myself and Nick and his wife, we are home all day long, all year round. I am homeschooling my children. It has impacted us with the noise constantly. They were not really playing out front anymore, jumping on their trampoline, because it was so noisy. They didn't want to be outside. Can hear it in the pool. So we brought it to the attention of the DRB that this was not an allowable thing. It is a sawmill under the law, and it is still in the scenic district. This is why we are here today, because even though it's now operating up there at Gordon's property, I can still clearly hear everything that's going on up there. I took readings from my back door, 3 readings on August 7th when he was processing, and I was getting anywhere between 35 up to 72 decibels at my house. So the topography of the land, that is, he is up higher than us. It comes down almost into a bowl up to behind Nick and Heather's house, where there is a huge ridge. I don't know if sound is traveling that way or not, but during this time of year, which is maybe 5 months out of the year, we have full tree coverage. During the rest of the year, I can see Dave Sill's house from my house, and I can see all the land behind us. So our concern here is basically the same as the Sills, in that it isn't like a firing range that is there for a large purpose and to serve our country. It is, we are private homeowners that did not move into this district where there was this noise level. We did accept that there were trucks going by on Pleasant Valley Road. Unfortunately, trucks are not using Route 15, which is a truck route. They use Pleasant Valley Road instead. So there's nothing really enforceable for that. So yes, we listen to truck noise all the time. 300 feet off my property for 3.5 years, I've been listening to this, and I'm really tired of it, and I want it to go away. So now the impacts to me, where my property line is, I get a truck coming across my property, turning in a K, so backing up constantly to make that corner, going along the side of my property where I can see the log trucks going by and the dump truck coming back by, up and up to his driveway at this point. So I get that noise, traffic back and forth every single time a truck goes by, whether he's loading, bringing in a load, unloading, it really doesn't matter. It's just increased traffic. I'm concerned for that. And really just my peace, because no matter where I am, even though I'm not an adjoining property, the sliver of property that is between the middle of the river, which is our property line, and where Gordon is sawing from is really not that far. It really is, it's an odd cut, an odd shape of land. So I am still able to hear everything. I am able to hear him, as he was telling you tonight, that he picks up with his claw and drops how many thousands of pounds on the ground that he said? I recorded it the other day. I have a recording of it. I can hear it right from my house. So it was how many 26,000 pounds of logs he drops?
I didn't take any notes. So.
Okay, sorry, I did see you taking notes up there. So when you were asking him questions. So there is also, it's not just the sawing. It's the trucking, it's the traffic, it's the dropping of logs, it is the sawing of logs, and it is impactful. Even though we are not adjoining anymore, it is impactful to us. It is close enough to our property line that it is going by and happening constantly. It's not just the issue of the sawing, which is, we have already proven, we sought counsel, we came to the table before and proved that this was not able to be done in this district. So my question is, his address is on Pleasant Valley Road. I don't understand why this is allowable. And I'm sorry, if it's under if you're taking a different avenue to look at it as a different home industry instead of on somebody else's land, it's not allowable. It's still a sawmill. So I'm sorry, we all deal with noise. That is a fact of life. But when you're home 24/7 and you're trying to teach your kids and you're listening to this for 6 months, 7 months out of the year, it's impactful. It's really annoying and really impacts our day.
Could you take a look at that map that's in front of you?
I don't have my glasses. So I know the map.
611, I'm just trying to make sure that
Correct.
that's your house there.
Yes, it is.
Can you point it out to me?
Yeah.
611? Yes, yeah.
So we are just over on the other side, but I'm not sure what the
611's
Johnson's
right here.
house number is. So we are right next to them. You drove by their barn tonight and the road cuts in
Yeah.
like this back towards our property.
Yes, 611.
So their Johnson's are 621.
Okay, so the road that you took
So you're-
tonight goes back towards our property line.
Okay.
We're
Just trying
kind of
to
right
get
there in the corner.
This
So
map
I mean,
happened to be in front of me. I was just
yeah,
trying to get
no
a
worries, no worries.
visual on where you were.
No, so I mean, what I'm trying to say is 7 to 8 months out of the year, I can clearly see that bridge. I can clearly see Dave Sill's house. I can clearly see the whole field that is behind us that is rented and farmed on. And so right now, the impacts of what I was hearing the other day are far less than they're going to be in 2 months. Because there's lots of trees in between. So it's kind of a clear line of sight. I can't see exactly to his property, where his property line is. I'm not really sure where that is, but just wanted to share where because it's seeming like people online don't really understand the history of what's been going on here and why this was brought to the table before. Other people are speaking and it's kind of muddy as far as maybe what they're referring to. So I just wanted to clarify. Okay, did you have any questions?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anybody else from the public that'd like to participate?
Charlie, may I take this one?
Sure.
Yeah, so for the record, I'm Brian Bourgeois, my wife Jill's here. We are at 23 Butler Road. We purchased our land about more than 25 years ago from the Butler family. And at that time, it was clear to us in our agreement with Butlers that what they were doing there was working the land. And I come from a background where that's part of my family's heritage in this state going back 6 generations. And I completely understand exactly what we're all facing. The other thing that I want to state right now is that in the course of my life here in Underhill, which is relatively brief, only 25 years, I've seen a trend towards, moving away from land as sustenance to land as park for the privileged. Now, I don't want that characterization to lend the wrong impression, but what that's resulted in is a lot of frustration. And Brad, I can see it. One thing I'd like to say right now is that I really, really appreciate what the select board does and the kind of conflict that these kind of things, where things are ambiguous, can promote conflict among neighbors. I have friends everywhere in this room, and I have a hard time even thinking about taking sides. I just want to point out that I'm noticing a trend. The other thing that I would hope is that when the state of Vermont recognizes that poorly written legislation results in conflicts like this, there has to be a bigger picture view of whether that legislation is pointing us in one direction or another, towards sustainability. If we're going to use wood, we have to have a source. Our other option is to truck it across lines, that might be counties or states even, to have firewood to burn here. And I'm not sure what we're achieving if we get that. That's not sustainable in my mind. It's using resources that we don't have here. My grandfather, working a truck farm, managed to purchase the land in St. Albans between Route 7 and where the interstate is now on Fairfax Street, as well as a city block in St. Albans. He worked himself to death. But that's the kind of heritage we come from. And I'd say specifically the reason Vermont is such a wonderful place now is because of the heritage that people like that have left us. And if there's any chance that the legislature can address issues that are confusing like this and make conflict like this less likely, it's a wonderful thing. But I also want to say thank you to the select board, especially Brad. I see your frustration, and we've been each other for a long time. Don't quit on us, because I know this is a tough job. And I'd really like to see this resolved for everybody shaking the Vogels. Congratulations for homeschooling. I think that's awesome.
And I'm a 6th generation Vermonter too.
Yeah.
A lot
good.
of history.
It's all good.
And just to
Like
clarify.
I said, I would love to see everybody here shake hands and get some satisfaction, but the hard part of this is nobody walks away with everything they want. So that's all I have. Thanks. I think we've heard from everybody in the room except you.
I think we've got it.
Okay. Opportunity to redirect.
I apologize for shaking. I'm sitting in front of that air conditioning after standing in the rain and I am freezing, so.
Give me my coat if you want.
No, it's good. It is cold. There's a lot there. I understand that this is frustrating to neighbors. It's frustrating to me on my side of it, being biased, or as unbiased as I can. It's sad to see if whatever decision I feel that is going to be made, it's sad to see a decision like that made because of people that stay at home. I get that people are retired, that people homeschool, that people work nights and are home during the day. I get that. And that's why I have gone to each of them at certain points in time to discuss days of cutting, hours of cutting. If they ever had an issue with it, I said, hey, please let me know. I am flexible. The world doesn't revolve around people that are retired, homeschooling, working nights, etc. If that was the case, nothing would ever get done and industry would never push forward. Hey,
please, stay quiet, please. This is an opportunity to talk to us.
If things were shut down because of people being at home, retired, homeschooling, etc., trucking wouldn't happen. Our stores wouldn't get stocked. Our schools, the buses going by wouldn't transport our kids, etc. To the record, neither one of my trucks have a backup alarm on them at this point. I can make every single turn into my driveway, into the wood yard. I choose to back up into the wood yard because it's easier for me to access the logs with a rear mounted loader. If I wanted to pull into the wood yard, I could. I don't back up because I want to set off an alarm. They don't work. They don't have them. I'm not developing anything on the land. I'm simply putting a piece of equipment on there. So the fact of, I don't remember the 5.14 or whatever, the review that the lawyer had stated, nothing is being developed, it's only being used. So, I mean, if that falls into play, there's no buildings being put there, there's nothing. And just because everyone calls it a sawmill doesn't mean that it is. It's been written in letters after letters after letters of emotional writing to the boards, to the town administrator. I think we need to classify what it is, because it was conveniently left out. The second part of the definition of a sawmill says anything portable being used in operation with a active forestry operation is excluded from this definition. Now, I do have a forestry operation on my property that does allow me to cut firewood that is used with Fran Sladek, a forester for Butternut Mountain Farms. I do haul firewood off of my property, and I do cut it at times for my wood consumption. We cut between 10 and 14 cords a year. So regardless of whether this permit gets approved or not, the machine is not going anywhere, and it will be used to cut our own firewood off of our property. So they'll either hear it for however much is for mine or for whatever is approved, if that's the way it goes. The logs have not been pulled off of 633 Pleasant Valley Road yet, because it would create a large deficit and a loss of revenue for me. Most of those logs were put there last September. I was shut down by the DRB and not allowed to operate without a permit there. To move them now just up to the hill where I don't have a whole lot of space, it seems infeasible to me to do that, and would create a lot of fuel because there's over 40 cords of logs there. And they are just sitting there drying. They're not making any noise. So I assumed it was okay to leave them there, because the main issue in the other appeal was the noise of the processor. So that's why I have not removed them yet, and that's why they're still there. And I plan on cutting those this year, and every log off that property will be cleaned up at some point. The property line is more than 200 feet from my processor. I went out there with my wife and specifically measured it myself with a tape measure, 100-foot measure, to each point that Dave had mentioned in his drawing. So he must have been using the wrong end of the ruler or something, because just from my property, or my point of the processor, where it sits, where we stood, to the property line is 235 feet, and it's another 100 feet to his house, so which would make it 335 feet. It is very heavily wooded with hemlock, maple, and other trees. And the sound readings were correct. I had my wife go through and check them. The 103,000 pound truck, yes, that was a thing. That was one reason why I spoke to Joe and got the property at 633 Pleasant Valley Road allowed to be used. But what the shocking part of that is 103,000 pounds, yes. But on that truck is 7 axles. There's a front axle, then there's a triaxle set in the middle, and then there's a triaxle set on the trailer. Each axle, if you're distributing the weight over, is 14,715 pounds. Per the 3 triaxles in the back, 44,000 pounds on the middle of the drive truck and 44,000 pounds on the trailer. Not one point in that travel over that bridge, is there more than 60,000 pounds? And the bridge is weighted for 72,000 pounds. So if I wanted to, I could drive a 75 to 80 foot truck across there. That's a triaxle in a truck that is loaded at 103,000 pounds, and it would still not be over 50,000 pounds at one point in the center of that bridge. So it's 25,000 pounds below the rating. It's not a concern. I'd also like to mention that because the logs are trucked in and they're not cut off my property, it is considered a sawmill per the definition of the town, except for the portable section, which we need to kind of figure out. I deliver log length firewood to many people in this town, and then they proceed to cut it with a chainsaw and split it with a splitter or a maul or something else of that sort that makes noise. Does this mean that because their logs are trucked in from off-site to their house at 6, 10, 12 cords at a time, that they are not allowed to operate a chainsaw to cut their wood up because the logs are trucked in from off-site? It's technically the same thing. If you look at the definition, the logs are stored on their property in a place where logs are cut up and turned into building materials or other wood products. It's the same definition. Just because the machine makes noise, they all want to call it a sawmill. You can write a letter and say it's a sawmill 1,500 times, but I deliver to over 15 to 20 people between 6 and 12 and 18 cords of logs every year in their house for different burning uses. Some have outdoor boilers, some have uses in their home that they heat. And it's the same thing that I'm doing, but they're just cutting it up on their property. So are we going to not allow everybody to cut up their wood on their own property because they don't have, 55 acres to cut off or 100 acres to cut off? I think that needs to be looked at here because it's not any different other than the machine that I'm cutting it with. A chainsaw can make the same amount of decibels if they're only a 1 acre lot or a half acre lot with logs on that property line. It can be louder than what I'm doing right now. I didn't issue or ask for a permit when I was down on Joe's property because of the fact that I was his the land manager. I did cut trees. I did manage his saplings and stuff. And it was admitted in the DRB findings of the other case that some parts of that operation were a forestry operation. And I didn't realize that Title 12 and Title 10 were different. That's why I didn't apply for a permit. That's why I didn't ask any of the neighbors for any permission to do something on Joe Tisbert's land because it's already zoned for forestry and agriculture there. Since I considered it a forestry operation, just like they're considering my equipment a sawmill, that's where I ended up. I don't think at this point that my machine, after you guys have seen it on site, has been classified yet. I'd like to see what it is classified as. And I'd also like to see the decibel readings in the Vogel's backyard. I mean, at this point, I have to agree to disagree that they're getting 70 decibels still from the position of my processor at this point to where it is at their house. I'm just in my driveway where we were located tonight from my processor to our chicken coop, which is closer from where she parked her car. I'm only getting 39 decibels there. So I don't see how she's getting 72 decibels in her backyard. I would like to hire a professional, unbiased sound recording technician if that's the case, because I'm going to call a BS flag on that. And the logs, things break enough on their own because of heat, because of friction, because of continual use. I don't drop any logs on my live deck. Putting the logs on there is the most ginger part of my operation. It is an inaudible noise. You cannot hear those logs being dropped onto the deck. It's the chain drive where the logs were 20 foot long feeding in. It's already bent as it is at the joint. Nothing is ever dropped there. If logs slip out and hit the bunks on the log truck, yes, that sometimes happens. I guarantee you it's not over the sound decibel limit for this town of Underhill. Hydraulics, they're funny things. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they work. It's common sense. A Jake brake, it's not just used on hills and trucks. If a car slows down when you're going by, it doesn't, the truck doesn't just slow down. When I'm loaded at 69,000 pounds, I have to use a Jake brake for cars going by. Yes, I do truck logs. Yes, I do use Pleasant Valley Road. Sometimes I stop at my house. Sometimes I keep on going. It depends. I mean, I picked up logs from Danny Clayton's and delivered them to a different firewood producer in Cambridge. Last I checked, you were allowed to drive over the road and use a Jake brake. It's not just used on hills. I've got my CDL. How many other people in this room have a CDL that knows how to operate a truck with a load that heavy on there? If you tell me when a Jake brake is used that shouldn't be on just a hill, I'll be the first to admit you're wrong. Like I said, to cut this short, I appreciate you guys being here as long as you have. There's been a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, toward my side. I think it would be a horrible thing to shut down a firewood operation. I am flexible. I am open to days of operation and hours of operation. Conditional use permit, that's why I applied for it. I realize there are conditions that go along with this. But with the age of some of the woodcutters in this town, just like Mrs. Colvin said, you know, she grew up next to it. The person she grew up to is Dennis Beloin. He's 79 years old, and bless his heart, he's probably going to die on that wood pile. But I mean, that's what he lives for. It's in his blood, and every person you talk to in this town has at least bought one cord from him if they burn wood at some point in their life. The guy's been doing it for years. Craig Walker, he's a great guy. He supplies a ton of wood. So is Westall's, and they have a permit for the same machine that I run. Their machine does the same exact thing as mine. They have a permit for it. I don't know what district it's in, but it's been before 2011, but it's a permit issued. So I think there are a lot of things that we need to consider here, such as people getting logs delivered to their house on smaller parcels using a chainsaw to split them up. Is that considered sawmill? You know, things like that nature. There's a lot of information that I hope you guys really deeply consider in making a decision for this tonight or whenever you decide to.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any final questions from the board? No? No? Dan? Do you feel you have enough information at this time to make a decision on the application for a conditional use permit?
I guess I'm not quite sure. There's some ambiguity in the decibel rating.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a possibility of getting to the bottom of that or not. That seems like integral to some
Pretty big gap.
information that we need.
If it helps, I can run the machine while somebody unbiased takes a reading with a decibel reader. I'll be willing to do that at any point in time.
Well, we would ask you to do it and provide the third party to do it.
Okay.
You know,
That's
so,
yep.
I mean, if we're not gonna make a decision because we don't have accurate decibel readings, we have to continue the hearing to give him an opportunity to find it. I'll bring the board's attention to the definitions, though, before we ask Mr. Williamson to spend money on a consultant for hearings. So forestry, right? As our right, wrong, or indifferent, the way our definition reads for forestry is the use and management of timberland for purposes of conservation and/or wood production and timber harvesting. This definition specifically excludes sawmills, lumber yards, and other similar facilities for the processing or manufacturing of wood and wood products, with the exception of portable sawmills and other equipment used on site in association with timber harvesting. So that's excerpted from our zoning regs. The definition of a sawmill, whether or not you agree with it or not, I'm going to read, and it's excerpted exactly from our zoning regs. The definition of a sawmill, according to Underhill Unified Land Use and Development Regulations, is listed as a wood processing facility, including structures and yard areas where logs are stored and processed into lumber and other wood products. Portable chippers and sawmills used in conjunction with active logging operations are excluded from this definition. So I bring the board's attention to equipment that we've seen and the use. and then ask you if you have enough information now to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. Or if you would like to get the decibel ratings. Not to put you on the spot there.
Can you read forestry again?
Forestry is the use and management of timberland for purposes of conservation and/or wood production and timber harvesting. This definition specifically excludes sawmills, lumber yards, and other similar facilities used in the processing and/or manufacturing of wood and wood products, with the exception of portable sawmills and other equipment used on site in association with timber harvesting activities. So that's forestry. So I'd ask the board if you have enough information at this time to to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did I convince you, Dan, or you still on?
Well, I don't know. I'm Gordon has a forestry operation up there.
With
It doesn't
portable
say that
sawmill.
all the logs need to be from that forestry operation. But I suppose, I'm not gonna hold up decision. I think that.
Well, it's our job to collect the evidence that gives you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's our job to collect the evidence that we need to make an informed decision. If you feel like you're missing some evidence, then we can continue the hearing to give Gordon enough time to provide that evidence.
I mean, there's definitely a discrepancy in the decibels, right? But is that relevant, I guess, is
Well,
in hearing the
If you
regs?
get into the
Right.
performance standards, it's relevant.
Okay.
It can't be more than 60 at the property line.
Right. And so that's one of the things, there's like 9 performance criteria in section 3.14 of our regs. So, I'll go out and venture, everyone DB levels.
I guess I would make a motion that we go into deliberation to discuss this application, and
So we can
go upstairs
Yeah, we'll go
for
upstairs
5
for a
minutes and
what's
come
that?
back. We can go upstairs for 5 minutes and
Yeah,
then come back
We
down.
can do that. So what we're gonna do is, Dan's made a motion to go into executive session,
Executive session.
right? And I need a second, and
I second that we go into executive session.
everybody, any discussion? Any discussion?
Oh.
No discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go upstairs for about 5 minutes. You guys can stay in the room.
Thank you.
And we'll be back. So we're back from executive session. What I want to do now is ask the board if they have received enough information to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Yes.
Yes. So I'll take a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
I make a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the meeting.
A second.
Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. What's my place here? Does the board wish to vote or approve this, to review this application in open or in deliberative session?
Deliberative session.
All right, so I need a motion
I
to,
make a motion to Am I making a motion to?
Making a motion to move into deliberative session.
Making a motion to move into deliberative session.
And I second.
Is there any discussion on that? Okay, so what that means is we close the evidentiary portion of the hearing. We have 45 days to issue a decision from this. The board's going to talk about it. We can't take any new information or new evidence. Right, we're going to just rule on the evidence that was presented tonight. And all those who signed in will get a written notice of our decision within the 5-day period. Our decision is appealable to the Environmental Division of Vermont Superior Court. So if you don't like what we've decided, you can go that route. I thank you all for participating. Hopefully,
Did we vote on that last proof?
What's that?
Did we vote on the last proof?
The moving to deliberative session?
Yeah.
Oh, no, we didn't do I.
I'm sorry. All those in favor of going into deliberative session, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we're
Thanks,
into
Charlie.
deliberative session.
Thanks, Dan.
So what that means is we'll get a decision out within 45 days of tonight.
So you're going to use the noise recording?
Well, you submitted evidence. We've also heard contrary evidence.
Yep.
Okay.
I just didn't know if I needed to hire
You
them.
don't need to hire.
You do not.
Okay. All right. Works.
Depends on how the wind blows.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Put that down in the end.
Say hi to Justin.
I will.
Oh, hi. Oh, you sat through that for shit. Oh, geez.
This one's please don't. It's just, it's been a very frustrating. I wear
My
many
hands
hats,
can't
so, and Charlie listened to my baggage, so. I gotta let it out.
It's fine.
Thank you to you all. Good luck with you, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Oh.
Okay. So we're moving on to,
Oh, yeah, we can't take you. We have to.
He got here on time.
did they tell you to come at 9?
You know, he got here at 6:30. He
No,
got
someone to come at six.
here at 6:30.
Sorry about that.
We should have done you
Well, I
first.
didn't know.
It doesn't matter. It was interesting.
Was it?
Once every 3 years.
I get something like this.
Show up.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Usually it's just like us and the applicant.
So not, you're here for your project.
Go ahead. You got the cheat sheet right
Oh, you
there.
got- yeah. Okay. Well,
That's kind of rude, everyone's leaving and not listening to yours.
Kind of
So-
like,
So just let me, Natalie, so we're on to something else that's pretty boring, unless you want to hang out.
That's terrible.
Sorry.
it's fine. I'm happy to be boring.
Sorry, I was doing something else. Bye.
Okay, it'd just be less confusing if you guys are good and you're not really care about Warren Creek. Okay, thank you.
So, this is a subdivision amendment review.
I just gotta get for the record this one person here in case they're here for the Warner Creek. Are you here for the Warner Creek? You're identified as name or?
They're not saying so.
Hello?
It's all right.
Okay,
They can lurk.
Okay.
Eavesdrop, however you want to put it. So you ready?
Yeah.
This is a subdivision amendment review hearing on the application to Redfield at 37 Water Creek, Lot 5A, parcel code WC 037. Previously approved in docket DRB 19-10. The proposal is to expand the building envelope at the north end of the subject property adjacent to common boundary with Lot 4, WC 024, and reduce the width of the vegetative buffer. The subject property is in the rural residential zoning district. This application is subject to review under the current regulations, the 2011 Town of Underhill Unified Land Use and Development Regulations as amended through March 3rd, 2020. The purpose of subdivision amendment review is to determine if the proposed changes conform with the municipal plan, regulations, and other municipal ordinances in effect at the time of the application. Should additional information be required, the board reserves the option to continue the hearing to a time and date certain in order for that information to be submitted and reviewed by the board. We have no members of the DRB present at the go-to meeting hearing. We have no public in attendance that has identified themselves as participating in this hearing. And we have no officials in municipal or other officials in present other than the zoning administrator who are acting in their official representative capacity. Copies of the rules of procedure that the board follows, as well as the interested parties info sheet, are available to all attendees for review on the town's website and can also be obtained from the planning and zoning administrator. Only those interested persons who have participated either orally or through written statements in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision rendered in that proceeding to the Environmental Division of Superior Court. If you are an applicant, a representative of the applicant, or an interested party who wishes to participate in the hearing, you clearly state your name prior to you speaking. What I'm going to do now, Wiley, is to swear in all those present who wish to speak tonight regarding this application. All individuals present online, who plan to testify must respond to the following oath by responding, I do. Do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the calls under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Are there any any conflicts of interest, or have there been any ex-parte communications on part of any board members?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so the order of speakers we'll hear from tonight is going to be the applicant or his representative, interim planning and zoning administrator, and members of the public who may show up here, and we'll give the people participating online an opportunity to participate as well. Once we go through all the testimony, the applicant or their representatives will have an opportunity to respond. Final comments will be solicited from the planning and zoning administrator, members of the public, and their representatives. Members of the board will have an opportunity to ask final questions or make any final comments. All speakers should address their comments to the board and not to other parties at the hearing. Members of the public are afforded 5 minutes unless a request and majority consent of the board to extend the time. The board may ask questions of anyone in attendance. So for the record, we have exhibits A through K. We've added exhibits I, J, and K this afternoon, which are basically BASLO preliminary and final review minutes from October 5th, 2020, October 19th, 2020, and October 26th, 2020. All these exhibits are available in the Redfield review file, DRB 2401, parcel code WCO37 at the Underhill Planning and Zoning Office by request, and they're also available on the town website. First, we're giving testimony here from the applicant or his representative. So Wiley, you are on. Tell us what you want to do.
Okay, so I guess.
Name,
address. My name is Wiley Peacock. I live at 855 Stebbins Road in Jeffersonville. I'm here representing Tim Redfield at 37 Warner Creek. Did I miss anything?
That's it.
Okay. Basically, you can kind of see from the picture, but for those that aren't looking at the picture, the lot in question has a 75-foot vegetative buffer between this guy, Tim, and the neighbor. And Tim wants to put a garage that would encroach on the vegetative buffer. There are no trees there as it stands. The neighbor could care less about this 75-foot buffer, according to Tim. And yeah, so we just want to reduce that to 40 feet, which is still greater than the standard offset distance. And Tim actually wants to plant a few trees in there anyways to increase the privacy between the two lots.
Do you know what the neighbor's name was to the south?
Yeah, Nathan Reynolds and Lindsay Reed.
Okay.
To the north.
Or that's the north, sorry.
To the north, yeah. So they're listed on the certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that is a different owner from the original owner when you were dealing with the Basil subdivision.
Oh, but I remember this. Were you guys here for this?
I was not.
This is at the end of the road?
Yeah. Go to Warren Creek. you take
Okay, and then it
right
goes on both sides of the road? Okay, I remember walking out there. All
This,
right, all right,
this
all right.
one's actually not even part of the, like the shared driveway use plan.
This right here?
Like, so Tim's.
Oh, this end, right. It's a driveway.
Well,
It's
the,
not.
what do you call, like
The
the
road.
shared road.
Right away.
The HOA
Yeah,
ends before his
Right.
property. He's like the very, very, very last.
very end, okay.
And so, yeah, the original approval had a 75-foot buffer. They're asking to amend that for.
So it was a big dust up between the previous owner of 24 Warren Creek and Marty Basil.
Okay.
Basil maintained a right of way to this lot, and he put stakes out in the center line of right of way, and the neighbor would be, take the stakes down. There was this big pissing contest between the two. That's an official term. And because I went through all of the minutes, I went through all the testimony, I went through everything, and I was like, we put the 75-foot buffer there to basically placate the guy that owned 24 Warren Creek.
Mhm.
Is this?
Yeah.
That's this purple.
Yeah.
Is what you're talking about?
No.
What are we
it's
talking
actually
about?
green. So this entire thing.
Oh,
was
all
the
of this.
75 foot.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we want to
okay.
reduce it to the.
Right, okay, gotcha.
Can
Yes, I do
start
remember
with
that.
the record here?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's clear to me that you interpreted the northerly line as the front setback, right?
Yeah.
Because if you see the rectangular house structure there, that was where it was proposed.
Oh, right, yeah, just the outline.
So this
Okay.
tells us, and that red line is that red line is at 40 feet. So we know by deduction that you didn't consider that a sideline because it'd be 50, right? So it looks to me like you're considering the northerly line to be the front boundary. And I say that because if you do entertain this, this request, the purple is 40 feet. But if that was considered a side boundary for the primary structure, it should be 50. And I understand that you're just trying to, get a reduction here so you build the garage. But what's to say that typically a building envelope is the minimum for a primary structure. So I guess my point being is that if you would all agree that it appears that the setback was considered the front for the north boundary.
At 30 feet.
Right. 30 feet in a rural residential primary dwelling is 30 feet front, 50 side and rear.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like to me. I just thought that was.
You just want that as a baseline, basically.
Well, I just want to confirm that
That was what the original approval had, yeah.
Yeah.
It would make sense that that would be considered the front because the driveway.
well, because
I mean-
I may look at that differently when it, but you're right. Yes. In this situation, you could almost look at it a couple of different ways, but yes, the frontage is on the northerly line.
Yeah, so the question I had, Brad, maybe you might be able to answer is there has a building footprint that was like originally proposed or says previously approved. And so that's also in the 75 foot. buffer.
Right,
So
exactly.
was that-
Well, so that was put on there for the wastewater. The wastewater plan shows that, right?
Okay,
So good question. The wastewater plan shows that, but then afterwards, the final decision created the 75-foot buffer. So when the applicant came to build the house, it was depicted in a, not encroaching on the vegetative buffer.
okay.
So you see the existing house where it got placed.
Yeah, further back. And so the DRB never like technically approved that building footprint, original footprint because,
No.
Right.
okay,
So they got the state permit before getting the town permit, basically.
Yeah.
okay.
So that's where they showed the house originally off the state permit. Town, you guys created the 75-foot buffer, vegetative buffer, there you go. And by the way, just it's noteworthy that the people that own the house now were not the original owners. They bought a spec house and they really had no say in where the house was to be built. They kind of created this hardship, but they didn't have a say in the matter.
The owner being the Redfields there, not
The current owner.
Yeah, of this one, not the north one. They got the house where it was put.
Yep.
But
What's this line here? This dotted, what's this circle thing? What's this?
So well isolation. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't have anything to do with anything. Okay.
Yeah, and you said the buffer is not vegetated now. It's okay.
well, it's not vegetated to that 40-foot line. There's a couple trees like right on the.
It wasn't back then either. So,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it wasn't like it was cut.
Right.
You wanted some separation.
We wanted
Yeah.
some separation.
I see.
It's all the
It was
vegetated.
pretty hot. hotly
Yes.
discussed here.
The
Yeah.
point I was making is it's not like we're looking to go cut down a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
It's already not.
But why are you looking to make it such a big, cut it down by so much? Like, it looks like where this building is, you didn't have to go so close.
I
You know what I
guess
mean? Like,
just
why?
to make sure that we'd have ample room at the garage without it be, like, we wouldn't want to impact this, and Tim wants to make this more vegetative to increase the privacy for the backyard as it is.
Mhm.
So he just wants to make it clear that he's not trying to reduce privacy and wants to leave room around his garage. He doesn't want to plant a tree right next to it and have it get blown over or something.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
And if this other person, if it wasn't such a highly contested thing, 30 feet would have been the envelope to do.
Anyways, right, and that's what it is?
Well, we're giving
You're
it
asking
40.
40,
so
so
we're
40.
giving an extra 10 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good grace, I guess.
Motion approved.
Yeah, I'll make a
Yeah,
motion.
I don't know. Yeah.
ask like a 10
Excuse
more-
us, can we go upstairs?
We could go upstairs again.
They just want me to get attacked by the cat. Scared cat.
So,
You should be scared.
so I'll make a motion that we approve the vegetated buffer as proposed for Timothy Raffield's property, lot 5A of the Baslow subdivision.
I second that motion.
Any discussion on the motion?
I did have a couple things I should get
Oh,
better at jumping in.
Well, we could.
All right, what do you got?
But I think that the lights on that approaching side of the garage, like the north side of the garage, I think, do you know if they're planning on putting lights over there?
I
Because
don't think he'd want them.
don't think you'd want them. So I guess I would
We would probably add
probably
that.
just, I mean, we
Don't
have,
put like a spotlight.
On the.
yeah, and it's just easier if we put it in there so that if in 30 years somebody puts one up, their neighbors have like a way of saying.
Is it like, not that I particularly care, but are you looking for like a street light that kind of sits at the end of your driveway, or you're talking more like a spotlight or something?
Talking about a spotlight. And we
Like I have a
have-
motion light
there's-
when I drive up my driveway on my barn, and if I had a neighbor, it would be really annoying.
Right.
Like, yeah.
Can you have a spotlight? Again, I
On the
don't know if
side.
he wants one, but like on this end, so he's gonna pull into it
Right,
here, so he can have a light there, just not facing.
Yep.
He's pulling it
Yeah.
on the west end, right?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
but what should also be, well, you're gonna expand the driveway to,
Yeah, so you can drive into it.
yeah, just, I guess the only thing that might be worth noting is to make sure that it doesn't interfere or make the turnaround any worse than it is now. You know what I mean, for emergency access.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't even gonna go there.
Mm-hmm.
But
He's making
Yeah,
it wider.
I mean,
He's making it wider.
He's not gonna
Fire
make it any
department, they
worse,
would
because
say.
he's gonna make a driveway all the way across. Like, he's probably just gonna, like,
Yeah, just make it this
yeah,
all.
it'd be kind of weird to put like a,
Yeah, where's the emergency vehicle turnaround now?
right there at the end of the,
Oh, at the end of the road, way over here. Yeah. No, he's only widening up here.
Right.
you're saying.
And so if we approve the reduced building envelope, would that piece of it be something they work out with you as like with the building permit?
Yeah,
Like the
exactly.
driveway, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I would just make sure. Yeah, they just gotta show me what they're doing with the driveway.
Okay.
We're
So
not
that
gonna
does-
make it skinnier.
So
That happens on its
that
own.
leads to one question. So you'll notice like Button Professional Land Surveyors, because they work for the neighbor to the north, right? The
Yeah, I
Reed,
thought-
right?
Well, I don't know who he worked for initially.
He worked
Was it
for
Reed or
someone.
Was it Basel?
It wasn't Basil because Hamlin did all of Basil's work. My point being is, how are you gonna, one thing that should be straightened out is, I think it's kind of crazy to submit a new plat for this.
No kidding.
Is
Yeah.
it worth
Yeah,
just,
no.
is it worth just having the decision in and then a note on the file? Right, a note on the file that it was changed.
Yes,
This,
good point.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah. Would we include that in our decision terminology?
see, this is, yeah,
Just hashing it out.
yeah, I mean, the whole extra buffer thing was basically to placate the neighbor. And
It was. Yeah.
It was
It
having,
wasn't like it was a grove of trees, precious trees we wanted
no,
to
it
see.
was just,
No.
get these stakes out of my yard. You can't put these stakes in my yard. And the guy was like, hey, I got a right to go to my property, which is over here,
Right.
through your yard.
Right.
And that's where the fun began.
I was dealing with Marty on that.
Yeah.
What else you got, Dan?
Well, you said the plantings, which is great. I mean, put some more trees in.
Who wouldn't want
I
that?
guess the other thing that I had written down, not that I guess I just somewhat maybe more nosy than anything, is this actually a garage or is this gonna be like, an accessory apartment?
No, garage.
This
There's
is
no
a garage.
permit in it.
Yeah, I don't think we could say it couldn't be an accessory apartment anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
it
So
meets the-
I guess I was just curious about that. I mean,
on just
but-
the wood process.
and that's what I thought of that before Brad said that there's new neighbors there and,
Yeah.
this is, yeah, it was an issue before, so. That's all I wanted to ask about.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second already established.
Yeah,
I'm done with
changed.
my discussion.
Ready to vote?
Sure.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying
Bye.
aye. Anyone opposed? Nobody's opposed. Unanimous, motion carries. Who wants to write the decision on this one? I figure I'm on the hook for,
I think it's Shane's turn.
I will, because, it's right in my
It's
alley.
an easy one, too.
Wiley wants to get cracking on building the garage. Yeah,
I hope there's no hidden contestant here.
No.
I had the list on you.
It is kind of my turn.
Shani, then Brian's next.
Am I next already? Okay.
Oh, you're gonna
Already
get
back
the,
around.
I will, if you want, you had the last one for the wood processor, didn't you?
No,
Who
No.
had that?
Penny and Meg did.
I helped with that one too.
I did do a lot.
We all helped.
Yeah,
It was
we all
kind of
did.
all together. I don't think that can count.
Yeah, so.
I don't think that one can
Yeah, it
count
was just a
really.
letter anyway.
Why
Yeah.
don't we adjourn the hearing? So we can stop recording.
Yeah,
Yes.
make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I second that emotion.
Those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.